Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
The final match day and Argentina have not only made it to the knockouts, they have topped their group, thanks to a 2-0 win following goals by McAllister and Julian Alvarez, in what was a convincing win. The XG backed this up, showing Argentina won despite wasting many chances. But how were Argentina able to peak just when they needed to? Let's take a look. And we'll be focusing on Argentina starting in possession. This was a game where they refined many of the tactics we've seen them using throughout the tournament. And this was helped by Poland basically being quite passive from the start, sitting in a mid to low 4-4-2. And in this game, Acuna from left back was even more aggressive in looking to push high up the pitch early on, and this would provide McAllister the room to move into the midfield to start off with, whilst Messi was free to roam around and would drop into the midfield during the build-up phase oftentimes. This would mean that Argentina could have up to a midfield 4 looking to overload Poland's double pivot. But throughout this match, Poland were determined to protect the centre at all costs, and this would mean that they would look to keep their double pivot much deeper in order to compact the space between the lines where the likes of Messi and McAllister were looking to operate, and this would be backed up by their forwards dropping onto the double pivot, so that this could be in effect a 4 versus 4. Poland were extremely disciplined, sitting in their 4-4-2 shape, and by having their forwards higher up but still able to pick up Argentina's pivots, this would allow their own pivots to keep an eye on Messi and McAllister, who've dropped deep to make the midfield box. This 4-4-2 shape from Poland eventually shifted to a 4-4-1-1, with the attacking midfielder, who could vary depending on how they rotated, having a big responsibility in defensive phases of the game, as if a midfielder dropped deeper to pick the ball up and was looking to create an angle to move higher up the pitch, they were responsible for preventing any progression going forward. But this also created an opportunity for Argentina. As we've seen in previous game, Fernandes likes to operate as the third centre back, allowing Otamendi and Romero to split wider. And not only would this mean that if Poland had their front 2, Argentina would still have the 3 versus 2 advantage, it also gave them other advantages. And these advantages played into Argentina's main tactics of looking to utilise and exploit the wide regions. In this back 3, particularly if Poland were pressing with only a 1, Otamendi and Romero had a lot more freedom to receive the ball outside of the compact central block. And down the left, much more so than Romero, when Otamendi received the ball, he would look to drive high up the pitch as much as he could. And he and Acuna would help to create the overload, with Alvarez also willing to move wide at times. And this would be helped by the likes of Messi drifting around the pitch, as Poland's pivots were extremely hesitant to be dragged to one side of the pitch. So, with these advantages, Argentina could look to use combination play to get into more promising positions. But down the left they weren't as successful as they were down the right, because with these overloads they were much less dynamic, as we'll touch on now. And where down the left Otamendi was entrusted with advancing the ball up the pitch, down the right hand side Romero had a more conservative role, and was up to De Paul, who would often drop in from midfield to receive the ball in these right back regions. This is where most of the space was, because as we discussed, Poland were looking to remain very compact in central regions and were quite unwilling to commit a man to the press, as this would disrupt their structure in the centre. So De Paul would have time to get his head up and ended up completing the most passes for Argentina by a distance. So these 4 players, and sometimes joined by Romero as well, had advantages throughout the 90. And although Molina could push much higher up the pitch, he could also start deeper, as they were willing to rotate these positions, and this would allow De Paul to operate in more traditional midfield regions, but still down the right, and Messi also tended to drift into these regions. And looking at their heat maps, we can see that both Messi and De Paul were biased to these right hand side regions. And Argentina's general need to overload either side also shows in their average positioning, with distinct clumps to the right and to the left. They were much more successful with these overloads down the right, as they were more dynamic off the ball. Messi operating in these positions would make it difficult for a midfielder to back up the press. So time and again the Polish winger would be dragged to the man deepest on the ball, whether Molina or De Paul, and when Di Maria was found, the fullback would immediately look to back this up. This would create space in the half space, and De Paul has a great engine on him, so he would consistently look to make runs into this region to receive the ball and then look to cut the ball back, and this led to dangerous situations for Argentina throughout the 90s. So Argentina begin their overload down the right hand side, and Messi here is tying up the Polish pivot. The fullback is drawn towards Di Maria on the ball, and this is the signal for De Paul to make the run into the space created, although he's not found in this instance. Running on the same play, De Paul and Molina have now rotated, but still Argentina maintained plenty of numbers wide. The winger had one eye on the advancing Romero, whilst the other then looks to pick up Di Maria when he receives. This creates a 2 versus 1, meaning that Molina can receive the ball by making the run between centre-back and full-back, leading to a good chance for Alvarez. And for the goal, the situation was slightly different, as Molina was overlapping in a more traditional sense, but still the principles were the same, and we saw that McAllister from these central regions was much more easily able to make a run into the box. But higher up the pitch, Fernandes would then tend to push up, alongside De Paul. And Argentina could be operating with a more, now traditional, front 5. However, McAllister's role was slightly different in this match, as in prior matches he tended to stick to these more midfield regions, but in this match he often pushed up as a second forward right up alongside Alvarez. So what this front 2 would do, firstly, is drag in the fullbacks, but it also provided Messi with even more freedom than he usually has, to drop into a deeper regions during the high attacking play, and this would allow him to dictate the tempo, as well as find extremely dangerous passes into the runners, often Acuna, leading to some good situations for Argentina. This play starts with Otamendi being aggressive in pushing up as discussed. So now he, McAllister, and Acuna have a bit of an overload going against the Polish 2 out wide. But now when the ball does go higher, Alvarez is joined by McAllister, who likes to push right up alongside him, meaning that Messi, who is always free anyway, has even more freedom to drop into these deeper regions. And McAllister has drawn in cash, meaning that Acuna has a bit more space out wide. So Messi is then able to find the high pass into Acuna, leading to a shot on goal. Overall, Argentina thoroughly deserved the win, though the whole group stage was much closer than they would have liked. They've now avoided an early tussle with France, and their draw is actually opening up quite nicely. For the manager tactical scores, it was a much improved showing by Scaloni, with his wide overloads pulling Poland apart, earning him a 7, whilst the Polish manager was dominated and leaned on a lot of luck to go through, meaning he only earns a 3. But leave your ratings down below.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you might enjoy the content available on my Patreon. Not only does Patreon help to support the continued production of content, as I am a one-man team, but it also gives you early access to videos that will come on the channel. You'll also get exclusive videos, get to vote on polls, and so much more. And it's cheaper than ever, no longer having a tier system, so everyone on the Patreon gets access to all the content. So head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple to check it out.
And a special thanks to my latest patrons, including Moinsey, Ari.
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.